Hello and welcome to the first episode of In Depth. I'm your host Ron. Later we'll be joined by co-host Joe to help us go over player performances, injuries, and also contract extensions. Before we get into anything, I do want to go over the schedule and how it's going to work moving forward. This episode will be a little bit different. However, once we go over the schedule, I think it'll all make sense. So, videos will be posted in the morning around 10 to 11, that is Central Time. So Monday mornings, we're going to look at a Sunday recap of what happened from Sunday's games, any injuries, and then also predictions for Monday Night Football. Going into Tuesday, we'll be doing a recap basically of Monday Night Football, almost the same as Sunday. Any new updates to injuries that happened from Monday or Sunday's games. Wednesday, we won't have a video as there's no football played on Tuesdays. Thursday, again, morning, we're going to go ahead and go over recap. Fantasy, anything we didn't go over Tuesday that's new. With that, Friday, we're going to go ahead and jump straight into the recap for Thursday Night Football. We'll go over predictions for any college games if there are any that Friday night. If there aren't any Friday night, then we won't do a recap Saturday morning. However, if there are, we will go over a recap of Friday night games on Saturday morning before we do the college predictions for Saturday's games. Sunday morning is going to bring us to a recap of Saturday's college football games and predictions and information for Sunday's games that day. Then that'll lead us back into Monday and the cycle will just keep repeating itself. So, like I said, this first episode is a little bit different. First, we're going to go ahead and recap all of the scores in the NFL for the week one. It's going to be a real quick segment. We're not going to go too in-depth into each game because we will be going over player performances, injuries, and other things later on. The first game we have to talk about on the week one recap is obviously going to be Thursday Night Football, Ravens and Chiefs. The Ravens lost that one 20-27 to the Chiefs. However, they did lose on a last-second drive. Isaiah Likely's foot was just barely out in what would have been a game-tying touchdown to send it to overtime. Just because the amount of time left, I doubt the Chiefs would have been able to push down the field for a field goal or anything else. Our next game was Friday. It introduced the first game in Brazil, our first international game of the 2024 season. It was the Packers and the Eagles. The field did look a little bit slippery, so we can't judge too much on this game, but we will be going over Saquon Barkley's performance and a little bit of Jaden Reed. Also, we'll be discussing that Jordan Love injury moving forward. Packers did end up losing that one 29-34 to the Eagles in Brazil. That brings us to Sunday's games. Our first one was 18-10. The Steelers beat the Falcons. It was a very defensive game. Steelers had 18 points. That was all coming from field goals from Chris Boswell. We're going to go over that later. Cardinals and Bills. The Cardinals did lose 28-34, but they put up a good matchup against the Bills. They were looking very dominant in the first half. Titans and the Bears. Caleb Williams did go ahead and get his first win. 24-17. Bears barely beat the Titans. It was a good game, very defensive. Next was the Patriots and the Bengals. Honestly, there wasn't a lot of offense to begin Sunday. Bengals ended up losing that one 10-16 to the Patriots. Kyle Duggar with a great punch out. We'll go over that later. Jaguars at Dolphins. Jaguars were up majority of that game until they let up a fumble. 80-yard touchdown by Tyreek Hill. Go ahead first play after that fumble. Got the Dolphins back in the game. Momentum swung their way and Miami ended up pulling out that victory 20-17. Panthers and Saints. Saints went ahead and whooped the Panthers. It was 47-10. Bryce Young and company weren't really too much of a threat to Derek Carr. Don't know what Derek Carr did in the offseason, but it obviously worked, throwing for 3 touchdowns. We'll go over that performance later. Vikings and the Giants. Sam Darnold and the Vikings looked pretty decent against the NFC East Giants. Giants obviously haven't really been too much to worry about in latest years, but still defense wasn't terrible. Obviously offense only got 6 points, so that's something that they need to work on. But 28-6, Vikings did take that one. Raiders and Chargers played, and as you remember, the Raiders dominated the Chargers last year. Chargers went ahead and got their get back. It was 22-10. Chargers took that victory. Ladd McConkey, we're going to go over his performance later on as well. We got Broncos and Seahawks. Seahawks took that one 26-20. It was a great matchup. Bo Nix, we're going to discuss that performance. Rams, Lions, 26-20 for Sunday Night Football. Jared Goff did go ahead and beat Matthew Stafford and the Rams. However, Stafford does have a ring, so we'll see how that pans out in the future. Jets and 49ers, our Monday night game. 49ers ended up taking that one 32-19. It was a great match. Personally, I wish there was more offense from the 49ers. Running back did amazing stepping in. We're going to go over that performance. The last game we're going to talk about is the Cowboys and the Browns. So Cowboys, Browns, we're going to discuss that Dak Prescott contract extension a little bit later. But the Cowboys did beat the Browns this weekend. A lot of injuries, especially late. We're going to go over the Njoku and Ferguson injury later on, but that's the week one recap. We're going to go ahead and dive into standings, division standings, and where the playoffs would be at if the season ended today. We're going to start in the NFC. We're going to start in the NFC East, obviously, because I'm a Cowboys fan. Cowboys and Eagles both picked up wins this weekend and Friday. However, the Eagles are going to sit top of the division at 1-0. Cowboys are second at 1-0. Commanders and Giants with losses. Commanders are third in the division at 0-1, and the Giants are also 0-1, and they are fourth. NFC North, we're going to move on to the Vikings, Bears, Lions. All of these teams got wins, 3 wins in that conference. However, it will go Vikings, Lions, Bears, and then Packers are obviously fourth at 0-1. Next, we have the 49ers and the Seahawks. Both of them got wins in the NFC West. 49ers will take the first spot, Seahawks second. Then we have the Cardinals and Rams, both with a loss. Cardinals will take third place, Rams fourth. Saints, Buccaneers, only 2 to get a win in the South. Buccaneers will take second. That's surprising to me, but somehow, like I said, the Saints offense went off. So Saints number 1, Bucks number 2, Falcons and Panthers are 0-1. Panthers are going to sit at fourth because that was a division loss. Falcons at number 3. We're going to go ahead and move straight into the AFC East. We have the Dolphins, Patriots, and Bills all earning a win. Dolphins will sit number 1. Surprisingly, the Patriots are number 2. Bills number 3. Fourth is obviously going to be the New York Jets, who are the only AFC East team to not bring home a win in week 1. We're going to go ahead and look at the AFC North. That brings us the Steelers. They are the only one to get a win in this division. They're obviously first place. Ravens, Bengals, Browns, all 0-1. Ravens will take second place, followed by the Bengals, and then Browns are going to take fourth spot in that. AFC West is going to be the Chargers and the Chiefs, only 2 to get a win in that division. Chargers will take home the first spot. Chiefs move into the second. Broncos, Raiders, 0-1 both. Broncos will take the third spot, followed by the Raiders in fourth. That brings us lastly to the AFC South, where the Texans, they're the only one to get a division, to get a win, and it was a division win. They moved to 1-0 and are in the first spot. Colts moved to second, which is surprising, being that they're 0-1 and it was a division loss, but is what it is. Jaguars 0-1 at number 3, followed by the Titans at 0-1 fourth. So, if the NFL playoffs were to start after week 1, the Chargers would earn the bye week for the AFC. That means they would not have a week 1 opponent. The Dolphins would play the Bills. That would be in Miami. We would have the Texans and Patriots. That would be in Houston, followed by the Chiefs and Steelers, and that would be in Pittsburgh. So that's what the AFC matchups would look like week 1 if we were to see the playoffs. So for the NFC, we have the Saints. They would obviously have the bye week as the number 1 seed in the NFC. Vikings would play the Cowboys. That would be in Minnesota, followed by the Eagles and Lions. That would be played in Philadelphia. Lastly, we would have the 49ers and Buccaneers, which is honestly a matchup I would love to see. That would be played in San Francisco, where personally I think it would be a shootout between the 49ers and the Bucs. Before we move forward, I would like to address, earlier I stated that Joe would be joining us as co-host. For this next segment, for the player performances, contract extensions, and injuries, there was actually a problem with the audio, so we had to re-record. Joe was not able to make it for the second session, so this episode will not include Joe, but you will see him in future episodes. We're just going to hop straight into it. First, we're going to take a look at Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. He went 24 for 30, threw for 289 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 of which came to the man Mike Evans. He had 5 receptions on the day, 61 total receiving yards, and like I mentioned, 2 total touchdowns. Baker did also get a touchdown to McMillan, along with a touchdown to Godwin today in their win over the Commanders. Josh Allen and the Bills, they took on Arizona, looked a little shaky at the beginning. Josh Allen did end up finishing the day 18 of 23, 232 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and then also two rushing touchdowns. He had 9 total rushing attempts for 39 total yards. Wasn't a bad day for Josh Allen. Not too much with the wide receivers. Hollins looked like he was nice in his first game in a Bills uniform. We're going to move on to the Packers and Eagles. We have Saquon Barkley. He had 24 rushing attempts for 109 yards. He only had 2 receptions for 23 receiving yards, but one of those receptions was for a touchdown. Moving past that, looking at Jaden Reed, he had 4 receptions in this game, 138 yards, 1 receiving touchdown, but he also did have 1 rushing attempt for 33 yards that resulted in a Packers touchdown. We're going to move straight into Monday Night Football, where we have 3 people I would like to talk about in this game. First, Jordan Mason, 28 rushing attempts, 147 rushing yards. He only had 1 rushing touchdown, 1 reception for 5 yards. Great game by Jordan Mason, stepping in for Christian McCaffrey. We'll go over that injury later. Allen Lazard for the Jets caught touchdowns by 2 different quarterbacks, Tyrod Taylor and Aaron Rodgers. 6 receptions, 89 total receiving yards for 2 receiving touchdowns. Jake Moody had 6 total field goals with 2 extra points made. 2 of those field goals were from 40 to 49, with another 2 coming from 50 plus. So Jake Moody was definitely extending the ball downfield. Love to see it. Kind of wish that offense would have gotten into the end zone a little bit more. We're going to move on to the Colts and Texans game. Really only going to talk about Texans players, some new additions that they added. Joe Mixon rushing for over 150 yards and a rushing touchdown. He looked amazing in his Texans debut. Same thing can go for Stephon Diggs. He did double the touchdowns that Mixon had. He ended with 2 receiving touchdowns on the day, 6 total receptions. Only 33 receiving yards, but still those 2 touchdowns were big in their win over the Colts Sunday. Isaiah Likely, best tight end in the league right now in terms of stats. He did have 9 receptions, 111 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. It was almost 2 receiving touchdowns. As you saw during the recaps, his toe was just barely out. So if it wasn't, that would have made it 2. But he ends the day with 1 receiving touchdown and 111 yards off of 9 receptions. I would like to go over the Steelers' performance next. More specifically, Chris Boswell, as he was the only one on that team who really scored any points. He did hit 3 field goals from 50-plus yards. No extra points were made in this game for him, but 3 from 50-plus is definitely nice. Their special teams and defense is looking, not going to lie, very scary. They have a decent chance of winning the AFC North if that offense can put something together, especially with how versatile Justin Fields is and more of that dual-threat quarterback position. But moving on to the Steelers' defense, they did only allow 226 total yards in the game. They finished the day with 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. They did allow a touchdown to the Falcons along with a field goal in their 18-10 win, but overall that Steelers defense looked very dominant. So for rookie performances, we're going to hop straight back into the Buccaneers and Commanders game, where Jaden Daniels had 16 rushing attempts for 88 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. They did lose, but he showed that he was very versatile. Next, we're going to take a look at Bo Nix. 26 of 42, 138 passing yards, 0 passing touchdowns. He did throw 2 interceptions. One of them was into triple coverage. Could have possibly got them back into the game with about 5 minutes left. He did have 5 rushing attempts for 38 yards and 1 rushing touchdown, but it was a little too late for Bo Nix and the Broncos. It's going to move us into the wide receivers. I want to go over Chiefs rookie wide receiver Xavier Worthy, fastest 40 time in NFL history. He had 3 targets, 2 receptions, 47 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, along with 1 rushing attempt for 21 yards and a rushing touchdown. So definitely looked decent in his debut. Had a rushing and a receiving touchdown. More to come from him, hopefully. We have Ladd McConkey, who had 7 targets, 5 receptions, 39 receiving yards for 1 touchdown. His touchdown, though, came in the red zone about 10 yards away, made about 2-man miss, hit him with a little side juke. It was a lovely move. Ladd McConkey, I honestly think he's going to be the starting wide receiver. I would say at least by week 10, just because Joshua Palmer, I don't really think he's doing anything. I don't think Quentin Johnston's doing anything. So Ladd McConkey, you heard it here first. I believe he'll be the starter by at least week 8 and 9. Injuries first. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Jordan Love's injury. He comes into it with an MCL sprain. He left in the last 6 seconds of the game. The final 2 plays, Malik Willis took the snaps. He wasn't placed on injury reserve, though. Matt LaFleur doesn't think that he'll be out for sure 4 weeks. It's kind of a week-to-week thing. Didn't really rule him out for the Colts game, but I highly doubt that he'll be playing in that, as they don't want to ruin their franchise quarterback. Next, we're going to take a look at Christian McCaffrey, another franchise player here. Missed week 1. He has Achilles tendonitis along with a calf strain. This is kind of a day-to-day injury at the moment. However, they did confirm that he is a long shot to play Sunday, so I doubt that we'll see him against Minnesota. However, if we do, that would be lovely. If not, though, the 49ers know that they have Jordan Mason, who can definitely carry the load after what he did against the Jets on Monday Night Football. We're going to take a look at 3 more players here. First one's going to be Puka Nacua. He was placed on the injury reserve list. He has a grade 2 PCL sprain. With this, McVay said on his podcast that with the type of injury and him re-aggravating it, that they know that he'll be out for at least a month, so they did place him on injury reserve just because that does free up a roster spot for them at the moment. Jake Ferguson, we have another MCL sprain. He is practicing with the rehab team as of right now, though, and Mike McCarthy said he is optimistic right now to play Sunday against the Saints, so we'll keep you updated on that and look for news probably Sunday morning regarding that. David Njoku, another tight end, both of them went out with looked like almost the same type of injury. David's ended up being a high ankle sprain. Kevin Stefanski said that it's going to be a week-to-week thing, but he did rule him out for Sunday's game versus the Jaguars, so he will not be playing. Deshaun Watson will not have his starting tight end. Even though he had him in this game against the Cowboys, it didn't really do too much. However, Njoku is definitely a major factor, not only with receiving, but also with the blocking game for Cleveland. That leads us into contract extensions. We got 3 players to go over. First, we're going to talk about Dak Prescott's contract extension. He has 4 years for $240 million. That breaks down to about $60 million a year. He's going to be bringing home $129 million guaranteed at signing. He has $80 million for a signing bonus. That keeps him in Dallas through 2028, so we'll see him, another 4 seasons. Personally, in my opinion, for this to work as a Cowboys fan, he has to at least make a conference championship in the next 2 years for it to be a good deal. If he wins a conference championship, it's a great deal. If he can't take us to a conference championship, I think it's just a waste of money. He's a great regular season quarterback, but once January hits, something just changes. So unless he can change his performances in January, I really don't think a contract worth that much is something he deserves. But like I said, he is one of the best regular season quarterbacks per numbers. We're going to go ahead and move to the defensive side of the ball in this next one and in the AFC. Looking at the South, we have the Dolphins. They went ahead and re-signed Jalen Ramsey to a 3-year, $72.3 million deal that breaks down to about $24.1 million per year. He did not get a signing bonus like Dak, but he will bring home about $24.2 million at signing, so he is guaranteed some money. That does keep him in Miami through the 2028 season as well, so we'll see Ramsey in a Miami jersey, again, same as Dak, roughly through the 2028 season for another 4 years unless they trade him. I think personally that's a great move by the Dolphins, kind of solidify your secondary, get a veteran who's still going to have some potential for the next few years before he gets too old to use him.
I think this will be the last major contract extension we see Jalen Ramsey sign before he kind of moves on to that lower end of becoming a veteran. Pat Freiermuth, he did sign a 4-year, $48.4 million deal with the Steelers. That comes down to about $12.1 million a year. He signed a $10.5 million signing bonus, so he will be making more off a signing bonus than Jalen Ramsey. However, his only breaks down to $11.6 million per year. And with this deal, the Steelers do solidify their tight end one for another 4 seasons. He is also signed through the 2028 season. Pat Freiermuth, definitely no question on whether or not the Steelers were going to sign him. It was just kind of a question to how much. So we got a 4-year, $48.4 million deal. I personally love it, especially with Justin Fields as the quarterback. They're going to need to give him someone to throw to. George Pickens, that'll just kind of help open that up. But Pat Freiermuth, definitely a decent signing by the Steelers. Welcome to our last segment. We have Thursday Night Football. We're going to go ahead and get straight into injuries. Then we'll go over predictions, teams, anything that we see for the matchup tonight. First, we're going to start it out with Buffalo. Josh Allen was out with a hand injury. Not really out, but you saw him getting it taped up on the sideline. Came from a rushing touchdown in the 4th quarter. He will play today, so that's good news. No reason to worry for Bills fans. Ron Johnson with a forearm. He is ruled out, cornerback. He has a injury, like I said, ruled out for the Dolphins game. No chance of him playing. Dwayne Smoot, he has a toe injury. He is most likely out for the Dolphins. That doesn't mean it can't change, but as of right now, most likely out. Javon Solomon, another DN, he has an oblique injury. He is listed as doubtful. He was limited at practice, but it is good news that he's practicing, getting back out there, getting some rehab on it. Ty Johnson with a knee, running back, he will play, so see if he gets any time tonight, but he is fully healthy for the game, so that's always good news. Love to hear it. We're going to move on to Miami. They have Jalen Phillips. He will play tonight, so after that Achilles injury, nothing's really stopping him right now. Hopefully he has a decent season moving forward. Jalen Ramsey, hamstring injury, as you know, he played through week 1 with it. He will play tonight. He was limited at practice, but the Dolphins have said he will play against the Bills tonight, so that's definitely good news. They'll need that with Josh Allen throwing. Raheem Mostert with a chest injury will be out this week. He did not practice, like I said, listed as out, and that brings us to Devon Achane. He has an ankle injury. Now, he did not practice Wednesday. He's listed as questionable, so there is a chance that he plays Thursday night. However, if he does not play and Mostert's out, that means that the rookie Jalen Wright might be getting some carries. So if you're looking for a running back to pick up for fantasy, doubt that he'll do too much, but you never know. Watch out for Jalen Wright. Last one that we're going to go over, last two. Malik Washington has a quadriceps injury. He's a wide receiver, rookie. He did not play week 1. He is ruled out for this week. He's inactive. Robbie Chosen came off the practice squad, got activated for that game. Last one we're going to talk about will be Elijah Campbell. He was limited participation practice for Wednesday. Listed as questionable, so another player that come game time definitely could get that okay, but definitely could go the other way as well. So we'll pay attention to injuries and see how they play out before the game. Now to predictions. The Bills and the Dolphins, the last time they played was January 7th of 2024. It was in the playoffs. Bills did end up coming out on top 21-14. So we'll see if there's any difference in that. Like I said, Tyree to don't know if Devon will play tonight, but even if he doesn't, they got Jalen Waddle. So definitely got a good team built around them. Defense, definitely important that, most of their defense is healthy. Let's hope we're not saying too much and, it'll get reversed. But I do see Jalen Ramsey being a pivotal point in the Dolphins defense tonight. But that kind of brings us around to predictions. While I do think the Dolphins will be able to keep up with the Bills, it is prime time. I do think that Tua and company will fall just a little bit short tonight. Final prediction for the game, I think it's only going to be a one-score game. I do see it being a 24-17, somewhere within that range, but my final prediction would be 24-17. The Bills win tonight. I think Josh Allen's going to throw for at least 2 touchdowns. If he doesn't throw for at least 2, I'd say he at least has 1 passing, 1 rushing. Rushing attempts, I'd put him at least at least 7 or 8. I don't think he's going to run too much tonight against that Dolphins defense, but I definitely think that there's going to be some times where that secondary kind of presses off a little bit, worrying about those deep threats. That opens up Josh Allen being able to kind of push past the line of scrimmage, get through that pocket, scramble like we know he can. So that's really all we have to go over for predictions and everything for Thursday Night Football. There wasn't too much to recap. Like I said, it's a fairly quick episode. So that's all we have for the Thursday Night predictions. Well, that's it for this episode of In Depth. As always, I'm your host, Ron. I appreciate you all being here today. I'll see you all tomorrow morning where we'll recap the Bills and Dolphins game, and we'll also go over our predictions where number 20, Arizona, plays number 14, Kansas State. We'll have predictions, bets, lineups, the whole go-around for that game tomorrow night. So make sure you tune in tomorrow around 10 to 11 a.m. Central Time. You guys stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next episode.